Los Angeles school districts are providing trans materials to students as young as elementary school that help them become trans activists. Some of these materials tells parents that not honoring their children's transition could endanger them, and children can transition without notifying their parents. My name is Art Kane. I'm managing editor of investigations at the Center Square. I'm joined by investigative reporter Kenneth Schrupp, and he wrote a story this week that showed that some people think the Los Angeles School District is grooming these children. What did your story find, and tell people why it's happening?
Hey, Art. So one thing we did find when looking through LAUSD's sexual education curriculum for elementary school students, this Positive Prevention Plus upper elementary curriculum, is that yes, there is a lesson on transgenderism for these upper elementary students. This is included in a larger lesson on puberty. But when we go more into other supplementary materials and items that the LAUSD has made available to students, we see some more problems. We have this large collection of 16 books that was provided to every elementary school in LAUSD of LGBTQ plus inclusive storybooks and lesson plans that go along with those storybooks. And one of them, Julian is a Mermaid, which is recommended for ages 4 and 8. A boy dresses up and is affirmed as a mermaid by his grandmother. And the lesson plan posted by LAUSD for the book, which is suggested for grades kindergarten through 3rd grade. The lesson goal is to, quote, help students understand that gender is a spectrum and that we cannot know how someone identifies unless they share that with us. The lesson plan also does encourage children to express themselves at school in a way that might not be accepted at home. Another quote here is, if you have students who say that they have a family member who says that boys can't be mermaids or don't wear dresses, let your students know that home and school can be different. One response can be, home and school can be different. Here at Name of School, students can wear what makes them happy. And there are plenty of other books with lesson plans and comments like this. But all of this happens is context for these evolving executive orders in the Trump administration and what is likely to be legal action between the federal government and the state government, because the state laws require that there be inclusive education of gender identity and transgenderism, not just in sex ed, but to be more inclusive of including a lot of these things and outside of sex ed. There are a lot of guidances, for example, that both unofficial and unofficial that explain that, you need to restructure math problems to be more inclusive of other identities and other family types. And the Trump administration now has this executive order where they have said they're going to consider how to withhold funding from schools that teach what they think is, or what the Trump administration defines as radical gender ideology and sort of this race-based ideology of privilege and oppression.
So do you think parents know about this stuff and are taxpayers on the hook for paying for these materials?
Number one, it's very hard for parents to know about most of this stuff because while parents might get disclosure about what's being taught in the sex ed classes, what happens when all of this material isn't in sex ed? What kind of notification are parents getting? And this bleeds into some other concerns about parental notification, at least at LAUSD, when a child wants to transition. The default actually is privacy for the student, and non-notification for the parents, at least when a student is just socially transitioning at school. And this has led a lot of high profile departures in the state. There's a bill called AB 1955 that when it became law, Elon Musk said, that's it, I'm leaving the state of California. And he cited this bill, which really prevents schools from disclosing gender changes, gender identity changes, from student records changes made by students, without having to really tell the parents.
So let's say the parent does find out. What's the process and doesn't want their children involved in this? What's the process for opting out of some of these lesson plans? I mean, can they opt out of all of sex education, but did they have to opt out of all these other things that may be curriculum that they want their children, but they just have this added aspect that they may not want?
Under a new Supreme Court ruling, Mahmoud v. Taylor, a parent can decide to really opt out of anything that they think might challenge their personally held religious beliefs. and the religious development of their child. This means, though, that parents have to be somehow aware of what is in the curriculum, even if it's something like a passing reference. Then that might need to be something that's changed in the lesson plan or curriculum. But at the end of the day, teachers, you can't really control what they're personally saying in the classroom. You might change the curriculum, you might change the lessons, but it is teachers who are going to each have their own style of teaching and teach what they want kids to learn. I spoke to one expert who said, well, in reality, there are actually hundreds of thousands of curriculums in California because each teacher is going to put their own spin and do whatever they want to do with the materials. So you have to have faith in your teacher. This also means that there probably are going to be some schools that might not decide to make opt-outs easy for parents. They might resist doing opt-outs. Before Mahmoud v. Taylor, it was very hard to opt out of non-sex ed content for children, but that is going to be changing, and parents can work on submitting public information requests. They can speak to their teachers. A lot of this information can all be made available to parents, but they have to ask. Now, the question is it worth, not even is it worth your time, but is it even feasible to look at all of the material and content for all of your students? Maybe you have multiple kids. Are you going to be able to review the content for 3, 4, or 5 kids every single day before they see it? In a lot of cases, that's not feasible, which has a lot of parents concerned about whether they want to have their children in the public school system in the first place.
So when you approached the school district and the Department of Education, did you get any sense that they're looking at these rulings and these executive orders to change anything, or they're just full steam ahead with this agenda?
I think that these school districts are in a difficult place. LAUSD gets 10% of its funding from the federal government. If it loses that, it's already facing I think, over $1 billion deficit within the next few years. That's an annual deficit, by the way. So they need the money. At the same time, though, they don't want to fall afoul of state law. State law does require that certain content be included in curriculums and lessons. I think we need to look at the similar case of something called Children's Hospital of Los Angeles and its gender transitioning unit. The gender transition unit announced after this Trump executive order banning hormone therapy, cross-sex hormone therapy, and gender change surgeries for children. They said they're not going to accept new patients anymore. And then the California Attorney General, Rob Bonta, told them, no, you have to stick by your required by the state to provide access to all of these medical services. So after that notice and some more pressure, they said they reversed the decision, said they're going to open. And then it seemed that they got some kind of notice that they could lose their federal funding, which is the majority of their funding. And they said they're going to have no choice but to shut down this sex change unit for children. I think we're looking at a similar situation for LAUSD and its schools, where it referred our inquiries to the State Department of Education, which then just sent us to their notice on Mahmoud v. Taylor, right? The school which gets most of its funding from the state government, does not want to get in trouble with the state. And if it comes to tug of war between the state and the federal government, I think the school is going to sit it out until the dust is settled.
Well, I guess it's going to be ending up in the courts like a lot of things are nowadays. Thanks for joining me, and feel free to please read his story on thecentersquare.com. Thank you.